got to actually get in the top 10. The room to be in the conversation.
Yo, what's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, it is Guardy3, and we are live. We are back with the And One podcast. And of course, I'm not doing this alone. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest co-host of all time, Mo Betta. Mo, how you doing?
I'm doing great on a fabulous Thursday night. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Let's get it.
And I'll say it right now, just so nobody's confused. We're also live on top of all the places. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. We are also live on TikTok. So if you have a TikTok, you can come check us out there too. So if it seems like I'm looking multiple ways, that's why. Now, normally, we start every episode with the underrated player of the week. But we're going to mix it up a little bit this week. We're going to get to that second because before we get there, congratulations is in order. Because what I'm about to say is a congratulations to the Wire to Wire podcast. Now, the Wire to Wire podcast just celebrated its 200th episode, and it's amazing to think that they were able to, keep it together and give you 200 episodes of quality content. And the only reason that this isn't the underrated player of the week is because they ain't underrated. If you ain't watching them and you aren't amazed at the knowledge that they bring you every week, well, I really don't know what you're doing. So I wanted to start off the show. Big congratulations to number 200 episodes for Wire to Wire podcast. I hope we're able to get And One there one day. And here's to another 200 more. Congratulations, guys.
Let me echo that. Wire to Wire podcast. It's just one of the best, if not the best. I think it's the best podcast out there. When you think about that trio, when you're talking about Shally, when you're talking about Cottrell, and of course the NFL genius, that threesome, the three wise men, they know all, they see all, they speak all. If you love sports, if you're a fan of any sports, be it college or pro, Wire to Wire podcast is where you need to be. And they give you something else too, guys. Not just sports, they give you great sports trivia. They have this ongoing competition with trivia. And look, I am an NFL/NBA guy, and they asked some questions that I had no clue on. They did a thing about quarterbacks who threw for I think it was like 40,000 yards that never led the NFL in passing yards, I believe, or something like that. And it was amazing to find out some of the guys in the countdown. And one of the guys that stood out to me, Brett, and you'll appreciate his name, was Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins, slash from the New York Giants, slash from the Carolina Panthers. I just never thought he had that prolific a career, and yet he did.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to start off by giving them a shout out. Keep killing it, guys.
Absolutely.
And now we'll get over to our underrated player of the week. Anybody just tuning in, we think there are too many NBA players that get lost in time that we think deserve all the love and admiration. So, Mo, why don't we start with you? Who is your underrated player of the week this week?
You know what? Because he's stuck in my head because of a conversation you and I had like right before the show. Underrated player, he is lost in time. But if you're a fan of the Cleveland Cavaliers, power forward, Larry Nance of the Cleveland Cavaliers / Phoenix Suns, if you don't know just Larry Nance with his abilities, remember Larry Nance did something that not a lot of people can say they did. He beat a basketball icon / legend in a slam dunk competition. That's right. When they brought the slam dunk back, Larry Nance beat Doc in the finals. But as a basketball player, great two-way player, one of those 6'10" power forwards, credible leaping ability, great length, can shoot the 15, 16-foot jumper, put it on the floor a little bit. Very good defender, just all around very good basketball player. Was a big part of those Cavs teams, Brett, when it was Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, and of course the great Mark Price that kept challenging the Bulls and the like in those days back in the early or late 80s/90s. Just one of the most underrated players, I think, overall, when you look at what he could do skill set wise on both ends of the floors. Larry Nance Sr., that is my underrated player of the week.
That's a really good one. Larry Nance could do so many things on a basketball court, which, quite frankly, were before his time. Insanely talented, insanely athletic. I absolutely love the pick. Larry Nance, 10 out of 10 pick. These are always tough for me because I think about like 27 million different players. But I'm going to go with maybe one of the original foul baiters that we really saw in the NBA, like in the early 2000s. I'm talking Rip Hamilton. Rip Hamilton, key cog of the 04 Pistons, was one of their arguably their best scorer. Him and Chauncey really helped with the scoring load. And the thing that Rip Hamilton did so well is he was insanely good at drawing fouls. He would always get to the line, and that helped the Pistons offense a ton. That was not a prolific offensive team.
No.
But anytime that they needed offense, they can normally generate it from Rip one way or another. If it was a flare screen to the elbow, they ran a lot of similar actions you see nowadays, except they didn't have the shooters nowadays. So instead of seeing like a Curry flare screen for a three-pointer, instead that screen set so Rip can get an open jumper at the elbow. So I think that man is criminally underrated, and he was a great multifaceted scorer. So I'm going to go with Rip Hamilton.
I like that pick. I'm going to give it a 10. That's a great pick. Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Billups, Brett, I think is one of the most underrated backcourts in NBA history. I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe that backcourt led the Pistons to 5 conference championships, to 2 NBA finals, and obviously they won 1 championship and lost to the Spurs in one of the great finals of all time. Although some would say one of the ugliest, hard-fought finals of all time. But yeah, look, another thing Rip was great about, Brett, is he was in constant motion, constant movement. Like if you had to guard Rip Hamilton, you were going to run miles to keep up with Rip Hamilton. He was also an underrated defender as well. Big fan of Rip. I was not a big fan of his, obviously in 03-04 because his Pistons annihilated my Lakers. And a big reason for that was what he and Chauncey Billups were able to do to the Lakers backcourt. So yeah, look, shout out to Rip Hamilton and all the flowers he's more than deserving of. A very underrated player, I believe, and I could be wrong. You can let me know. Is Rip like a 3 or 4-time All-Star? I know Billups is like a 5-time All-Star. They're just a really, really well-balanced, underrated backcourt.
No, absolutely. And I was thinking about Rip because I was just rewatching some of those Pistons teams from the mid 2000s, some of those deep playoff runs they were making. And, it's funny. Everybody remembers Ben Wallace, guarding Shaq in the low post. But, honestly, Elvin Campbell may have done a better job at guarding Shaq than Ben Wallace. That man, he was Shaq's backup the year before. He was big, He was strong, and he knew a lot of Shaq's moves. Now, granted, nobody was slowing down Shaq in 2004, but I think he did a good job as any.
He did. And Ben outworked Shaq, even though Shaq got his numbers. If you go back and watch that series, it literally came down to Shaq and Kobe versus the Pistons, and that wasn't enough because the Pistons defense locked down the role players. They weren't going to allow the Laker role players to be a factor, and they didn't. I thought Tayshaun Prince did a tremendous job on Kobe. Larry Brown had an amazing strategy. He had no problem allowing Kobe to play one-on-one unless he got anywhere near the paint, and they would send a second defender running at him. Everything about Kobe was meant to be a contested jump shot, and it was a great strategy, and they worked it to perfection.
Oh, absolutely. And let's switch on over to a little something that happened today. We have ourselves some Olympic basketball.
Ah,
Now, why don't we just we'll get to the USA. We might as well start with France took out Germany. We'll see them in the gold medal game. But honestly, the team I wanted to mention real quick didn't even make it. I was thinking and I was told that we were supposed to really worry about Canada.
yeah,
And that was the team we were going to see in the gold medal game. And they lost. They almost lost by double digits to a Wemby that shot 2 of 10 and Rudy Gobert, who only played 3 minutes. So they really got buried by Evan Fournier and company. But I think my question when it comes to Team Canada there really comes down to one player in particular, Mo. At what point do you start getting worried about Jamal Murray? Because let's be real, he was not good in the playoffs, and I know I can see it in the comments already. Oh well, he had 2 game winners against the Lakers. 2 good 5-minute stretches does not equate to a great playoff series, and I think as a whole, he underperformed against the Lakers. He underperformed as a whole against the Timberwolves. He goes into Team Canada, and they relied on him, and he underperformed in a big way. Mo, do you think this is a sign of things to come for Jamal Murray? Do you think he bounces back? What do you make of this Jamal Murray's recent struggles?
I feel like, to me, I would be concerned, and I know people will blow it off, but look, I watched Jamal Murray as much as you do. He did not play well in the Lakers series. To his credit, he made 2 monster shots in that series, but he didn't play well. He shot under 40% for that series. He didn't play well the next series. He struggled. He struggled, and it seems like his struggles have continued into these Olympics. Look, if you watched the game today or the game the other day against France, you're right. The France decided to go with a smaller lineup. They went with Wemby, but they wanted to be able to match Canada's speed and quickness, which they did. Now, SGA, he came to play. SGA played well. The problem was Jamal Murray was awful, and Dillon Brooks was worse than Jamal Murray. He was awful. And if you're going to talk as much as Dillon Brooks talk, sooner or later you actually have to be able to back it up instead of running your mouth so much. But more importantly, I'm with you. Look, I'm sure the Nuggets will go, no, he's fine. It's a shooting slump. I'll say this because he's such a big part of what the Nuggets do. They need Jamal Murray back being confident, efficient Jamal Murray, shooting 47% from the field, around 40% from three, doing what he does, shot creation at an elite level, playmaking and scoring, and having that swagger about him that makes him an elite playmaker and scorer. You didn't see that the past playoffs, and you haven't seen that in these Olympics. As a basketball fan, and then I'm talking out to my Nuggets fans, that has to concern you, because if you don't have that Jamal Murray, that's that much more work, that much more pressure that you have to put on Joker, and you already have more work ahead of you because your bench was already watered down, and you just lost KCP. I really do look at Denver. Obviously, Brett, we've already both agreed when you've got Joker and they do have enough players, I'm not questioning if Denver's going to be a playoff team, but I am questioning if they're a title contender right now, because right now I don't think they are.
And it's not like Jamal Murray comes cheap either. This is the guy that the Nuggets just offered a $209 million extension to. So he wants a raise. And honestly, after that performance in we just saw in the Olympics, he better have all the confidence in the world in himself. Otherwise, if I'm him, I'm traveling straight to Denver and hey, where's that contract again? Here, real quick, I'll sign it.
Let me ask you this. So they offered him 209, but he didn't accept it, right? He didn't accept it.
No, he declined it.
And that's kind of crazy. And this, I'm pro player. If you can get your money, or if they're willing to pay what you think you're valued at, good for you. I think $209 million. I don't think that's a low ball offer to Jamal Murray, and it's not like he gave them his best basketball last postseason. But look, it's on him. I will say this though, Brett. When a team like this starts having the shakeups that they have, and that they have a front office that's been told, I want you to roster construct, but always be mindful of the second apron. I said, Brett, to you, I told you at some point they're going to have to make a decision between Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. If Jamal Murray doesn't accept the extension, you know, and I know, there's no way Denver allows him to get to free agency. You know it, and I know it. So what's going to happen is they're going to keep trying to talk to him, but at some point they're going to have to realize, like, if we keep him on the roster on the other side of the trade deadline with no contract, we could literally lose him for nothing. I don't think they take that chance. I think at some point Jamal Murray either they sweeten the pot a little bit more, or they do something huge, something big. And instead of them moving Porter or Aaron Gordon, they might move Jamal Murray.
That would be interesting to see what the trade market is. Thank you for the gifts, Indiana. Hey, what's up, Justin?
Because he has, we can agree he has value, right? We can agree.
Yeah, he absolutely has value. I could see a team maybe like the Orlando Magic, who desperately need shot creation, definitely taking a chance and giving him a big contract. Yeah, it's odd what's going on with Rudy, because of course he only played 3 minutes. He said he had surgery on like Monday, and he had an MRI, and the coach half agreed with that. He goes, well, he had an MRI, but I didn't know anything about the surgery. So at this point, I have no clue what's going on with Rudy. I think the realistic answer is Rudy should have always expected less minutes against that team, because let's face it, they're quicker. It was just a quicker, more athletic matchup, and it wasn't exactly Rudy's cup of tea. So,
no, I thought putting Wemby made sense, right? Because the rest of that lineup could match what Canada could do speed wise. So, look, I think the coach and the team made the right decision. Rudy can't play in space, and they were going to play the type of game that was going to be fast paced, and they were going to space the floor. That's not his strength.
No, absolutely. And now we'll get into it today. We got United States, Serbia. United States, it looked like they were going to lose. Goodrick hit a 4-point play, drew a foul on Derek White to put him up 16. And it really looked bad at the end of that third. But as we know, what do we call him? Leggy Captain America. KD and Curry just took over the fourth and walked down Serbia. Kind of something that I figured was a possibility, because Serbia was really trying to play at this like breakneck pace, and I wasn't sure if they'd be able to keep it up through 4 quarters. But Mo, I need help understanding something, because something was sorely missing, and I think it's insane that Kerr refuses to play Jason Tatum. Like, I think Tatum could have impacted this team so much in all the right ways today against Serbia, but no minutes. And it's something I don't understand.
And normally you don't question Steve Kerr's decision making, but he's made some interesting choices in these Olympics. What I would say is, in this particular matchup, it seemed like a matchup tailored for Jason Tatum's skill set. They were wanting Team USA to just launch jump shots, right? They weren't going to let them touch the paint. What Jason Tatum can do at a high level at 6'9", 6'10" is put the ball on the floor and attack the basket. Like, I think you need as many guys that can create off the bounce, that's willing to attack the basket in your lineup as you can. And Jason Tatum is a solid defender. It's not like, oh no, Tatum's in, so we have to help him. No, he more than holds his own defensively. I'm I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't know if it's a chemistry situation between Kerr and Tatum. I get that in these Olympics, sometimes because you're talking about the very best of the best, that there may be different lineups and different roster construction depending on the matchup. But Jason Tatum's had a couple of DMPs, and I don't really understand it. Unless there's an injury that we're not being told about. I think he does have more value than maybe Steve Kerr thinks he has.
And it's not like everybody today was playing lights out where it made sense to bench him. Like, I'll be blunt, Anthony Edwards was terrible today. He did not play well. Even for stretches, he picked it up in the fourth, but for 3/4, Devin Booker didn't play well. I'll say we had our friend there, Kyle, trying to start the Jaylen Brown over Devin Booker propaganda. He was playing so bad. But yeah, it just didn't make sense to me because this did seem like a perfect matchup for Jason Tatum. But Steve Kerr only knows how to play two lineups, and it's either he goes really big with two centers or really small with three guards.
Yeah, I just feel like at times he's not like I thought the best thing about this roster was the versatility. I don't think he's using all aspects of this roster and the versatility of this roster because you can play Tatum not just at the 3 or the 4, you can play him at the 2 if you want to. Like he has that kind of versatility. You have guys on this roster that can play multiple positions. I just think Kerr's a little stagnant in the way he's doing his rotations. And look, I get it. Big picture, if USA goes on to win the gold, we're not even going to talk about this after the fact. Like the players might, but as fans, we're going to say they came there, they won the gold, mission accomplished. But I just think, how could Jason Tatum not be frustrated?
Yeah, and thank you for tuning in Coast to Coast podcast. But he's also sat against the same team. If it was Canada or another country, he would have played. This Team USA, though, here's the thing, though. This is a Team USA where if somebody's struggling, you can plug in another superstar to, try something new, try a curveball. Right. And with the way Team USA was struggling, I know Tatum didn't play last time against Serbia either, but I thought that at some point maybe we should have given him a chance. Granted, we ended up winning the game, but how much of that was coaching and how much of that was really just your star players taking over?
That's a good point.
To me, it's just frustrating to see us struggling and to just refuse to almost make any adjustments. And not to mention, it's not even just the Tatum thing that I have beef with. I just think Kerr coached a terrible game today. I see guys going under screens. All right, well, guess what? Bogdanovich, Dobrik, Goodrick. These guys are killing us from three, and we're sitting here going under screens. We're doubling Jokic, even though doubling Jokic might be the single stupidest thing that you can do as a defense. Because, yeah, maybe in single coverage, Jokic drops 50. That's better than Jokic maybe dropping 30, but now the whole offense is cooking because he's whipping it around the perimeter. So I just think today overall, when it comes to not only personnel-wise, but just strategy-wise, it just seemed like a bad game for Kerr. I'm not going to say Kerr's a bad coach.
No, not at all.
He had an off game today.
And that can happen. And my argument with putting Tatum in, you're down double digits in the first half. I'm talking about putting him in just for a spark or switching it up a little bit because clearly the starters, they were struggling, and mostly they were struggling on defense because you're right. It's the going under the screens. It's all the gambling. They overplayed the passing lanes. They were getting beat back door. They were getting caught on pin downs. Like I just thought Serbia played the kind of game that was cerebral but smart, really smart, because they kept Team USA on their heels. But to your point, Brett, and I wondered this too, could they sustain it? And the answer was no. It's not like they didn't fold. They didn't fold. What happened was, like you said, it wasn't great coaching. You had 3 Hall of Fame signature players Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant come to the rescue.
What is Steve Kerr's coaching record without Curry? Really, really good question. Without Steph Curry, Steve Kerr is 67 and 106. He has I'll say he has very much so has a losing record without Curry. And honestly, I just hope that they make the right adjustments in their game against France. Because if they get off to a slow start, it's easy to think that, well, the Hall of Famers will bail us out, but that's not always going to be the case. So let's hope everybody comes ready to play Saturday.
And you have to expect that France is going to be motivated, right? It's the home country, right? You know what I mean? Like I think the crowd are going to have them as fired up as possible. So Team USA has to come out fast, aggressive, and bring their A game because look, France could be so juiced up being the home team, having that energy behind them. Like amazing things happen in the world of sports when you underestimate your opponent. So I think we have to come out businesslike, aggressive, and try to put this game away early.
No, absolutely. And plus, that French crowd is going to boo Team USA. They're going to hate the crap out of us. Not only because we're playing the home team, but we also have a certain guy on that team that they despise. A little guy by the name of Joel Embiid. He's going to get that LeBron just returned to Cleveland in 2010 treatment. He's probably going to get booed every time he touches the ball. So Team USA has to be prepared. It's going to be an insanely hostile environment because not only the whole home team, but you have the Joel factor. So they got to be ready to go. And switching from the Olympics to some breaking news we just got a couple days ago. Lauri Markkanen is off the market this year. Everybody's off season. Could you imagine if Embiid had played with France? Oh, he would have gotten some Wemby at small forward minutes. That would have been interesting. LeBron does love that stuff. I expect LeBron to have a big gold medal game. But we have Lauri Markkanen. He's off the market for a year. It seemed to be everybody's favorite trade machine target. He's at least stuck this year with the Jazz. 5-year max contract, 5 years, $238 million. Mo, what did you think about it when you heard the Lauri got his extension?
Look, I'm glad for him that he get the bag. Like I said, I'm always rooting for the players to get what value they think they're worth. And look, I think Utah, even though Danny Ainge has 1,000 picks in his bag, and I like Lauri Markkanen as a player, I think you do too. But I think we both agree he's not the guy. Like he's definitely part of something that can help you win and help turn your franchise around, but he's not the guy. He's not that guy. He's not a franchise player. He's that other star that plays beside the franchise player. So I get that Utah didn't want to lose him and maybe nobody made them enough of an offer that they couldn't refuse. But him returning to them again, it's not a bad thing because he is a star, he is a talent. But I'm wondering what direction Utah is going in. Where are they going? Because unless you have to get a star in there that's a legit franchise player, because that guy will get the best version of Lauri Markkanen out of him. But until then, Lauri Markkanen is your best player. And if Lauri Markkanen is your best player, you're not making the playoffs. That's not a knock on Lauri Markkanen. He's just not that guy.
Yeah, that's why I was also putting him in trade machines, because I understand that Lauri Markkanen is better suited as he's Robin, and that is perfectly fine. He's the Scottie Pippen to Jordan. He's the Chris Middleton to Giannis. And honestly, every team needs that guy.
Exactly.
And, I don't blame them for, extending him. You don't want to risk losing him for nothing. And, of course, there's always the chance he goes off again. He has a great year getting all the touches that he pleases. Maybe he raises his trade value, where a team doesn't really care about the salary and just goes, oh, I really want this guy. So, and you can still get assets for him. So overall, I think it was a great trade or a great signing. Worst case scenario, it's not like the Jazz are going anywhere in the next couple of years anyway. So I don't think that money would really be better well spent elsewhere. So overall, I'm here for it. Laurie got paid. The Jazz got their guy for another year, and we'll revisit this next year.
I think you make a great point. By signing him to the deal, I don't think it makes him less attractive. There's going to come a team that comes along and go, well, we would have paid him that much anyway, right? Somebody's going to say that. And somebody's going to see value in him. So I don't think the ability for the Jazz to move them, I don't think that's left the building at all. I'm just wondering because Danny Ainge is always forward thinking. I feel like he made this signing not so much as that he thinks Lauri Markkanen is a part of their future. I think he still sees him as a trade asset somewhere down the road.
Absolutely. You know, Trader Danny, he's always looking for that next big trade.
Agreed.
And now it's time for us to have a little fun. For anybody that doesn't know, Mo and I are going through each division and we're playing a little game. Is each team a playoff team? Are they a play-in team? Or are they just a flat-out lottery team? And the division we're on is the Central. So we got the Bucks, Cavs, Pacers, Bulls, and the Detroit Pistons. So I think the first couple are going to be easy here. Mo, are the Bucks a playoff team? Are they a play-in team? Or I hope not, are they a lottery team?
They're absolutely a playoff team. I think the Bucks did something that I'd been screaming for them to do the last 3 years. They actually went out and got some young legs, much needed young legs. And I think that, look, Dame and Giannis with another full season under their belt, I think they're going to be right there in contention for the top spot in the East again. So they're absolutely a playoff team, and when healthy, this is a title contender.
100% agreed. I love the Gary Trent signing. Did absolutely phenomenal with that. That's a guy I thought was going for at least 10 mil. Somehow got him for a minimum.
Yeah, that blew my mind that you got. I mean, I was like, who's he friends with that he's willing to take that much money? Wow.
And I'm just like you said, I'm happy we just got younger. I'm happy that I don't look at this roster and go, oh boy, I got to rely on Jay Crowder this year. Oh, Marvin Harrison sighting on my team. Awesome. But yeah, that's something that the Bucks needed, and obviously we got Andre Jackson too. I think will take a big role, and I think we got some quality young second year guys that are going to come in and play a big role right away, and maybe even some of the rookies. I could see Tyler Smith having some impact throughout the season, AJ Johnson getting spot starts. So overall, I think this is a title contending team as long as Giannis is healthy when it matters.
And I'm gonna throw something else out there. I think you get Chris Middleton coming into training camp, and he'll be healthy and he'll be ready to go. I think Chris Middleton has another all-star caliber season in him. So I think I get the criticism from last season because there was a lot of stuff going on. But you have to factor in the injuries, the coaching changes. That was insane. I still think the Bucks are title contenders. And I think just like I thought last year with the West, I think it will come down to matchups. So I absolutely like what they did in the offseason. And I'm going to be interested in to see who gets the number 1 seed in the East this year.
I saw some Knicks fans before we get to the Cavs. They were trying to figure out who could Mikal Bridges be on the Knicks? What players can he play like? And I saw a lot of them start throwing out Chris Middleton's name, and I thought that was the funniest thing ever because those are very opposite players.
Yeah.
Like Chris Middleton will never touch the heights that Mikal Bridges can reach on defense. Mikal is an excellent defender, but Mikal Bridges will never touch the heights that Chris Middleton reaches on offense. Chris is a much better passer than Mikal Bridges. If you've seen Mikal Bridges pass the ball, let me know because I really haven't. He's a much more efficient scorer. And just overall, once you start adding in passing and scoring and just every facet of offense, there's actually a bigger gap than you would think between Chris Middleton and Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, look, I think offensively, the only thing Mikal Bridges would have over Chris Middleton is athleticism. That's about it. Chris Middleton just has a bigger bag than Mikal Bridges. I think Mikal Bridges on the Knicks, Chris Middleton can give you 20 plus a night on a consistent basis as a number 2 or a 3, depending on what you do. But I think Mikal Bridges on the Knicks, because of the way they play, because of how ball dominant Brunson can be, I think you're looking at a guy that's going to give you 16 or 18 points a game. And that's not a terrible thing. I think it will work, but I don't think he's a Chris Middleton. I think he might be a better overall player, but he's nowhere near the offensive player that Chris Middleton is.
Absolutely. And this next team we're getting to, Mo, I can't figure out where I'm at with this team, because I already know the answer of what they are, but they just decided to stay in the mud and stick put, do the same thing as last year, and I think that was a bad choice by them. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Mo, playoff team, play-in team, or lottery team?
Playoff team, but they literally are just a playoff team. And I know people want to use the line that, well, once you get into the playoffs, you never know. No, I've seen the Cavaliers. I do know. I do know. They're a playoff team. They will make the playoffs. They might win a first round series. They might lose a first round series, but they top out at winning a first round series. That's if everything goes right, they win a first round series. Usually when you bring your core back, it's because you're one of the top title contenders and you're like, we just missed it. We just need to tweak something and we'll go to that next level. The Cavs brought a core back that is just good enough to get you into the playoffs, just good enough to barely win a first round series and then get annihilated in the second round. They got dusted up in the second round the year before last. And I would understand their thinking if you told me, well, Jared Allen has another level he can go to, or you haven't seen the best of Max Strus, or Karis LeVert has another level he can go to, or Donovan Mitchell, who I'm a fan of, can go even to higher heights. I don't think he can. I'm a Donovan Mitchell fan, but I think what you've seen from Donovan Mitchell, that's Donovan Mitchell. I think that is the very best version of Donovan Mitchell. And I think there's no question he's their best player. I don't think Donovan Mitchell, and this is not a knock, and I know people always call it a knock. Sometimes we can just speak plain. It's a simple question. I'll ask you, you'll tell me yes or no. Is Donovan Mitchell, Brett, is he the guy that could be the best player on a title-winning team?
The best overall player? No.
Yes, the best player. The guy. Can he be the guy?
No, I think he'd be the best offensive player, but not best overall player.
Right. My point is, he couldn't be the actual guy. He could be a big part of it, but he's not the guy. He's a terrific player. But I don't think he's enough to where he's going to carry that particular core to new heights. I like Evan Mobley. I like Jared Allen. I don't like them together. I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. It messes up your spacing because you have two zero range players. I don't know what they're doing. And Max Strus, I think that Max Strus, Brett, that we saw the year before last on Miami that couldn't miss, I think now he's being more like normal Max Strus, and he does miss. And so they kind of overpaid for that guy who's just a guy. Karis LeVert, you might get 30 on a given night, and then the next 10 nights you might get 30 combined. I just think they didn't do anything, and they stand it pat. And if you're a Cavaliers fan, I don't know what you have to be excited about. You're going to make the playoffs, and then you're going to lose, and the season's going to be over. And it's not one of those things where you're going to go like, when we come back next year, look out. No, you're going to come back with the same guys, and you're going to get the same results. So I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, and I know the Cavs can sell themselves on. You look and go, well, this could work. Evan Mobley can space the floor now. He shot 37% from three last year. I want you to look at the attempts if you think that, because I've seen that argument. Look at the attempts. I don't care if you're hitting 37% on 1 3 a game.
I was getting ready to ask you. I bet he took less than 2 a game.
Yeah, he took like 1.2 threes a game.
Yeah.
And if you really want this front court to work, you're going to have to buy into Evan Mobley taking 4 or 5 a game and really threatening the defense and still maintaining that 37% volume. Can he do it? Maybe. But is that a guarantee? Far from it. Because we've only ever seen him shoot 1 3 a game. So overall, I think that there's a lot of risk in buying into Evan Mobley shooting threes at a higher volume being your selling point as a title team, I guess. I think that's what they're trying to do.
Right. And let me add one more thing. In that Central Division, the Cavaliers are not going to finish ahead of the Pacers. They're not. You could argue that between the two teams that Donovan Mitchell is the best player between the two teams, which I think he is. But I think the Pacers are a more balanced team when you look at what they can do versus what the Cavaliers can do.
And that brings us to our next team, the Indiana Pacers. Do you think they're a playoff team, a play-in team, or a lottery team?
I think they're a playoff team. I do. I think they're a playoff team. And look, nobody's perfect. Obviously, one of their obvious flaws is they don't consistently play defense at a high level. And it seems like, Brett, and you saw this firsthand, if they're not able to play at a certain pace, their offense stalls out. If they can't play fast, they're not very good in half-court execution. That's something they have to work on. And that starts with their best player. Halliburton is terrific when he can play up tempo, but when you put him in the half court and it becomes more of a grind, he fades from time to time. Like you almost forget he's on the floor. So he's got to find a way to be just as impactful in half court basketball, where it's more about execution and being more efficient than in the open floor where he's a much more dominant player. Like I said, it's not a star-studded team. You've got Halliburton, you've got Siakam, you've got a bunch of really good players that are around 24, 25 that do a lot of good things. So I just think they're a really good team that if they can get you or lull you into playing at their pace, they win. I think they're going to have a better year than the Cavaliers. I think they're going to finish second in the division, but there's no question they're a playoff team.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a playoff team. As much as I am not the biggest fan of, the Pacers, I think they're a playoff team. Actually, I'm hoping they're a playoff team because they're the one team I want the Bucks to come into the playoffs and smash in the opening round. But yeah, I agree. They're a playoff team. I think the big thing about this team, I think Hallie's going to be healthy. We saw how great Halliburton is when healthy in the first half of the year. He obviously suffered an injury and his play fell off, but he was special in that first half of the year. He was really special, and I think we're going to get more of that Hallie next year. And if he stays healthy, this is easily a playoff team.
They're a much better team. He's a much better player when he touches the paint. When he touches the paint, it elevates everybody around him. When he settles for just taking jumpers, he's a mere mortal. So it's very important that they have a healthy Halliburton going into this season.
And now, of course, the ever-loving Chicago Bulls. I never know what the Bulls are doing, but I'll give them credit this year. They finally picked a direction. I'm sure we'll agree on these last two teams. Mo, what are the Chicago Bulls this year?
Well, you didn't give me another category. I would have said pitiful, but they're a lottery team. They're not even a play-in team. They're a lottery team. They don't have any direction. DeRozan's moved on. You're trying to get rid of LaVine. The problem is you can't even give LaVine away. That's bad when you can't give somebody. You can't give LaVine away. And I don't know what you're going to do with Vucevic, who while he still puts up solid numbers, he is 33. So clearly Vucevic is not part of your future as well, which I kept telling Bulls fans. Like, why you keep extending these guys and they're in their mid 30s? I would get it if they had brought you success or multiple playoff runs. They didn't do that. They're a team with no direction. They are a lottery team. Maybe that is the direction. The direction is to not be very good and be a lottery team. Well, I think if you look in light of the moves they've made, they are well on pace to be a lottery team.
And like the thing about Vooch, it's hilarious because I get told his value is to space the floor. He's a floor spacer. He shot less than 30% on threes last year. So who's he spacing the floor for? You watch the Bulls play, nobody's scared of, nobody's going out to cover Vucevic. Nobody cares if he shoots. Let him. It's probably just going to be the biggest brick that you've ever seen for that game. So I think Vucevic still has value, but I also think part of the issue is I think he's just checked out of playing in Chicago. Sure, he'll sign an extension. He'll take the extra money because that's more money than another team would give him.
True.
But I think at the end of the day, half the time when I watch Vooch, he looks done. He just looks like he's checked out and he doesn't really want to be there, but the Bulls keep handing him paychecks, so why not?
I just, like I said, I'm not a Bulls fan. I'm not in the city. I'm sure their beat writers would have a different take on what they're doing. What I'm looking at is I'm looking at a franchise that is clear. I have to assume you could say tanking, but I don't want to say they're tanking. They weren't any good. They don't have to tank. If they played their best, they would still be a lottery team. They're just not a good team. I'm just trying to figure out what your direction is, because if you're putting all your eggs in if we get the number one pick, you never know. Yeah, you could, but what if you don't? What if you end up with the number 7 pick or the number 8 pick? Like, and in recent years, that's been so Chicago, right? That's kind of what it's been. So I just, and maybe what they need, maybe you need a new president, maybe you need a new general manager, but you need change at the top. That's what you need, because until you get change at the top, you're going to keep fielding these less than mediocre teams and just torturing your fans.
And yeah, absolutely. And honestly, and this might be a pretty hot take, I wouldn't doubt if they finished last in the division. Ladies and gentlemen, our last team to talk about is the Detroit Pistons, and I think the Pistons will be twice as good as they were last year. I think you'll see a lot of improvement for this team. Let me be clear. This is still a lottery team. Twice as good as last year is only 28 wins, so I don't think there'll be any world-beating teams. But the Detroit Pistons, they went out and they fixed what they needed to. This is a team that needed anybody that can shoot a jumper from 3. Yeah. And they went out and they got floor spacing around Cade. They cut bait with the players that were problematic last year. They cut bait with them throughout the season. Killian Hayes is gone. Isaiah Livers is gone, replaced with Malik Beasley, who lit the league up from 3 last year. Overall, I think this is going to be a fun team, and I think I wouldn't be shocked if Detroit finished over Chicago in the standings.
I agree. I actually think Detroit's going to have a better record. You said 28 wins. You know what? I think because Cade is going to be a year older, more mature, he's going into his man body, and he's going to be better with his overall skill set. I think Jalen Duren, who I was a big fan of, is going to be a year better, stronger, ready to take another leap in his development. I think Detroit wins between 30 and 35 games.
No, absolutely. And I figure we'll have a little fun next. I had one more thing planned out, but
love it.
We talked about this beforehand, and Mo, I'm going to throw a hot take at you. It might be a hot take, it might not be. To some people, it just might be. And here we go. Let's see how badly I'll get slandered for this. My hot take of the day, because I was having this debate online, Dennis Rodman is closer to being a top 30 power forward of all time than he is to being a top 10 power forward of all time. What do you think about that, Mo?
I mean, it sounds like you're being mean and you're anti Dennis Rodman, but then go down the list of great power forwards. He's not a top 10 one. And I would hasten, considering the conversation we had before the show, he's not a top 15 one. I don't know if he's top 20. We're talking about the greatest power forwards of all time. Don't confuse that with power forwards who were complementary players who played on championship teams. Dennis Rodman was not the best player, the second best player on those Detroit Pistons teams. He wasn't the second best player on those Bulls teams. He is a complementary player who was very good in his role. He was. Now, if we want to tell the whole story, we can tell the whole story. I'm a Dennis Rodman fan. I am. But I'm honest. Those last two championships that the Bulls won against the Jazz, look, I get it. In the regular season, he gave you his 15, 16 rebounds a game. Great low post defender. I think people forget that version of Dennis Rodman was not the same version of Dennis Rodman in Detroit. He couldn't guard on the perimeter anymore. He was a low post defender. That's just facts. 2, Karl Malone was one of the greatest power forwards of all time. He just mauled him. He reminded Dennis Rodman, I'm literally 40 pounds bigger than you, stronger than you. You're not going to be getting 14, 15 rebounds against me. Both of those series, I think Dennis Rodman averaged 8 rebounds a game. That's a testament to him stepping up, playing against one of the all-time greats and not being able to play him. Do you remember the one series, Dennis Rodman ended up splitting time because they had to put Phil Jackson with Bison Daly. Remember that? He went with Bison Daly because Bison could make Karl Malone play defense. Bison had an offensive game. I'm just saying, look, I like Dennis Rodman. He's worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer. All the accolades we give him, Brett, I think he deserves. But people get crazy when you go, well, he's not a top 10 power forward of all time. He's not. He's not. It's nothing. It's not an insult. He's not. He's not a top 10 power forward of all time. Are we taking Dennis Rodman over Rasheed Wallace? We're not. Are we taking him over Sean Kemp? We're just talking about the basketball player that he is, because if you go, he's better than Sean Kemp. You think Sean Kemp wouldn't have done well with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan? I think he would have done great. The argument that most people are going to give you, Brett, and the pushback will be, he's a better defensive player than pretty much everybody you named, right? That'll be fair for most of those guys. But your pushback is going to be, and it's an easy pushback, right? Right. So yes, he's a much better defensive player than Charles Barkley, but Charles Barkley is going to average 25 points and 12 rebounds and 5 assists. Dennis is going to come anywhere close to that? No, he can't, because Dennis didn't have an offensive game. Not because he was unselfish or anything like that. He just literally didn't have an offensive game. Couldn't handle the ball. Average passer at best. He was a specialist. How about this? A guy who both you and I think is a very good player. Probably not quite a Hall of Famer. Dennis Rodman in the best version of Amari Stoudemire. You taking Dennis Rodman over Amari Stoudemire? Probably not. Probably not. Not the best version of Amari Stoudemire. I'm just saying, like, I'm a Dennis Rodman fan, but he's not top 10, top 15. And look, you'd be hard pressed to make him top 20. You would be, because remember, Elvin Hayes is a power forward. I'm just pointing out all-time great. Tom Chambers was a power forward. They don't say it, but Elgin Baylor was a power. Is he going to be ahead of any of those guys? No, he's not. Not going to be ahead of Kevin Garnett. Not going to be ahead of Dirk. Not Karl Malone. Not Chris Webber. He's not better than Chris Webber. He's not. He was blessed to have more success, team success. But everybody I just named, and this is the argument I would have the most people, everybody I just named, they were the number one guy on their teams. Or at worst, number two, but most of them were number ones. As much as we love Dennis and what he brought to a team, he ain't your number 1, 2, 3, or 4. He might be your number one defender or one of your best defenders, but he's not the number one guy. There is no team that can be built around Dennis Rodman that's going to win a title or come close to winning a title. It's not going to happen. And if he was just as great as some would say, remind you, I'm a fan, but I'm being honest. When he was in San Antonio, that year he was with the Spurs, he was a train wreck. He was a train wreck. He didn't add to the team. He actually sucked the life out of the team. I think many people remember when they played the Rockets, I think it was 94, 95, and David Robinson had won the MVP, and Olajuwon had just gave David Robinson the business. What a lot of people forget is they switched out. They put Dennis Rodman on Akeem Olajuwon, and he ate him alive even more. They had to switch back to David Robinson because he was killing Dennis even worse. I'm saying that to say this. He's an all-time great defender. He's an all-time great complementary player. I think it's a disservice to the all-time great power forwards. By the way, Kevin McHale is a power forward too. Is Dennis Rodman better than him? Absolutely not. So I'm just saying there are some great all-time power forwards. Dennis is not of that ilk. You would have a better argument, and I think you put it out there. You would have a better argument if you said, well, I think Dennis Rodman is better than Rasheed Wallace or somebody like that. I don't think he's better than Rasheed Wallace, but you would have a better argument.
Yeah, and for anybody that doesn't know, I was having a debate with people, and they were telling me that Dennis Rodman should be in the top, close to the top 10. I saw some list where he was in the top 10. And I'm a big Dennis Rodman fan as well. I think he's a well-deserved in the Hall of Fame. But like Mo just said, I completely agree. He shouldn't be anywhere near the top 10. I think he's closer to top 30. And there are plenty of other players that I would take over him. With all due respect, there's other guys like even Chris Bosh was a better player than Dennis Rodman. Imagine Chris Bosh being the third option to Jordan and Pippen with his floor spacing ability, defense, and rebounding.
Chris Bosh is nice.
Yeah, and like I said, overall, big Dennis Rodman fan. But let's stop overrating who Dennis Rodman really was.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sure somebody's like, they're killing Dennis Rodman. I'm not. I was when he was up for the Hall of Fame. I no doubt in my mind, I thought he should be in the Hall of Fame. No doubt in my mind, he's one of the greatest defenders of all time. But those things and the fact that he's not one of the top 10 power forwards of all time, that's all true. It's all true.
And coming off that, I have one more fun thing planned for us, Mo. So we're going into the NBA season, a couple months from now, but I thought we'd have a little fun. So here is a list of starting point guards in the NBA. This is off ESPN's depth charts, and I thought we'd have a little fun, Mo, talking about starting point guards and trying to make a list and trying to rate all these starting point guards.
Sounds like a plan.
So I think some will be easy, some not so much. So I think if we're starting at the top, I'd probably go the best point guard on this list is Luka Doncic.
I don't disagree with that. I think when you look at what Luka can do on all three levels offensively, and I get it, he's not a traditional point guard, but this isn't a traditional NBA. So I would have Luka number one as well. I have no problem with that.
And then, of course, I think number two, if I had to look at this list, I'm probably going Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And
I like that.
Number three, give me Steph. Steph is getting older, and I think he's lost his spot as the top point guard, and I think he's lost his spot as a top 2 point guard. But I just don't think I can put him any lower than 3. Gives you a testament as to how great Steph Curry is.
I'm still with you. Let's remind people, Steph's 35. He's 35 and still playing at an elite level. So I know we always give LeBron flowers because you are talking about a man being 40 years old and playing at an elite level. Let's give KD, who's getting ready to be 36, Steph, who's 35. Let's give them their flowers for being well past a decade and playing at a high level into their mid 30s. Look, Steph might not be number one. It doesn't make him any less dangerous. So I'm good where he's at.
So I think this is where this whole experiment starts getting fun, right? We had who's the fourth best point guard in the NBA. Some names, like when we look at this list, what do we got? We got Jalen Brunson, Ja Morant. Those are two. Tyrese Halliburton. We were just talking about him, giving him all the praise in the world. De'Aaron Fox. I think those are.
I'm putting it out there. If he's healthy, if he's 100% healthy, I'm talking about the basketball player, the next guy's got to be Ja Morant if he's healthy. As good as Halliburton is, as good as Brunson is, and I'm a huge Brunson fan. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. If Ja Morant's not top 5, something's wrong. So it's got to be Ja Morant. I get it. And I'm only putting him 5 because he missed a complete season. But I think if Ja Morant comes back, you're talking about a guy that's probably going to average 28 points a game, 6 or 7 assists, shoot damn near 50% from the field. He's improved his 3-point range. He's as dynamic a player that there is in the NBA. That maybe the most dynamic player is Anthony Edwards. Right after him, it's Ja Morant.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. To me, it came down to 2 players for the 4th spot. Looking at this list, I was thinking either Ja or Jalen Brunson. And I'll respect Fox and Halliburton, but those are my 2 for 4 and 5. And I agree. If Ja Morant's 100% healthy, comes back, and he's the Ja Morant that we knew and loved before all of this troubles came up and started a couple of years ago, he's the 4th best point guard in the NBA. And I kind of just spoiled who I think's 5, Jalen Brunson.
And I'm fine with it. And I know people are like, well, Mo, did you see what? Yeah, I saw it. I'm a huge Brunson fan. But it's funny because if you watch Brunson, Brett, you can appreciate this. A lot of the things that he does, he's so workmanlike. Whereas you look at Ja, and Ja makes a lot of things come easy to him, right? Because he's just such a freakish athlete. Look, Brunson doesn't have the 40+ vertical. So he's got to rely on having an off speed and throwing you off with his handle or backing you down or showing you his footwork in the post, even though he's not that tall, but he's strong, he's physical. Like Brunson is built like an NFL safety. My only concern about Brunson as a fan is his insanely high usage rate. I feel like if it stays where it's at, it's going to shorten his career. And I don't want that. I want Jalen Brunson to play at a high level, let's say for the next 7 or 8 years. But if he plays at that, let's call it Derrick Rose, super high user rate, I think it's going to shorten his career. I do. I truly believe that.
I agree. And that usage rate, it just reminded me of this thing I saw earlier where another basketball content creator on Twitter said the NBA should consider doing this. And it was talking about baseball. I think they had a triple header today or yesterday. And my first thought was the Knicks. And I'm like, poor Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart, if the Knicks ever do have a triple header, those poor guys are going to end up playing like 144 minutes in one night. They're not sitting for any of the 3 games. So.
Oh, you can book it. You can book it. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart. I'll throw in, I think Bridges too. I think Bridges is going to play a ton. I mean, those 3 are going to play a ton of minutes. You can't play OG that many minutes just because of the injury history. Look, let me just say this. I'm such a Jalen Brunson fan. It is the biggest, it's one of the biggest reasons why I advocate for the Knicks to move Julius Randle. It's not because I dislike Julius Randle. It's because I like Jalen Brunson. And I don't think Julius Randle's skill set meshes with what the Knicks became once he was out. Adding Bridges just solidifies where is Julius Randle going to fit on this team? Because I don't see it.
Oh, absolutely. And now, number 6, looking at all these guys. So to recap our top 5, 1, Luka Doncic, 2, SGA, 3, Steph Curry, 4, Ja Morant, 5, Jalen Brunson, and number 6, to me, 6 and 7 came down to 2 players for me.
I'm
And
guessing Halliburton's one of them.
Halliburton is one of them. The other one is De'Aaron Fox.
Okay. I'm okay with both of them.
To me, those are 6 and 7. The question is, what order to put them in? I went with Halliburton at 6. I think De'Aaron Fox is the more explosive scorer and playmaker. Like more explosive scorer. I meant to say, I think Halliburton, though, just has a better overall offensive package. I think he sees more of the court. I think that he's also a very great playmaker, and he's an efficient scorer. So I like Hallie at the 6. I think one advantage for Fox over Hallie is Fox tends to draw more fouls, while Halliburton, you watch him play, and he does what we like to call mashing, or instead of really trying to foul bait and go in and draw fouls amongst the trees, he always keeps his dribble alive, which almost works for a better overall offense, but he doesn't draw a lot of fouls that way. But I think in terms of just being a better point guard and who's just going to be a better player next year, I think at the end of the year we'll be saying Halliburton slightly ahead of De'Aaron Fox. I don't think the gap's that big, but give me Halliburton as my 6th best point guard going into the year, and De'Aaron Fox is going to be number 7 for me.
I don't have a problem. Look, I literally think you could flip a coin on those two. I look at De'Aaron Fox and I view him. I know he's a point guard, but I view him more as like a 2 guard. And when you look at how the Kings get the ball to Sabonis, I think Sabonis averaged more assists per game than De'Aaron Fox did. So I think Sabonis is getting a bigger role as a playmaker, and Fox has become more of a scorer. And I don't know going forward if that's going to elevate them, because now you have to factor in what do you do when you have Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, and DeMar DeRozan on the floor at the same time. So that it's going to be an interesting dynamic. I'm with you. I think Halliburton is just a natural better facilitator. I think De'Aaron Fox is a better scorer, but it's not like Halliburton can't drop 25 on a given night, because he can. And I would argue that the next step in his development or his elevation is what you just talked about. He has to be more aggressive touching the paint. If Halliburton ever gets to the point where if he's just averaging 5 or 6 free throw attempts a game, it is going to elevate him and his teammates.
No, absolutely. Now, 8, 9, and 10. Here's the next 3 names I was thinking about. In this one, it was tough. I am thinking Jamal Murray, Damian Lillard, Trae Young. Now, for all the people who are low on Trae Young, I acknowledge him as a generational offensive talent. The amount of offense that man drives just by being on the court is pure insanity. Granted, you need to play a certain way that might not need to lead to a lot of wins because of it.
Right.
But he is one of the best offensive engines in the league. So keeping him out of the top 10 is tough. I think there's 2 names. There's 2 more names, actually, to make this interesting. I think there's really 5 great names you can consider, 8 through 10. On top of those, they have Tyrese Maxey and Devin Booker as point guards.
And I don't think Booker's not a point guard. Now he played some point last year, but he's not a point guard. I'm okay with them putting Maxey in there. I would have Maxey. I would have Maxey ahead of Trae Young. I still would have Trae Young in the top 10, but I would have Maxey ahead of Trae Young. And let me say this about Maxey going forward. He may be, of these younger players, the younger ones that are coming up, he may be the guy that has the biggest leap this coming NBA season. Like I was actually going to do, it's funny you brought this up. I was actually going to do a reel for Facebook, maybe TikTok, talking about the Sixers and how it is my thinking, and I love how me and you can segue into other conversations. It is my thinking that with the addition of Paul George, because what everybody's going to look at is Paul George is going to be there for the next 5 years or whatever, and I'm like, no, he's not. But with the addition of Paul George, if you look at the Sixers, anything less, and I want your opinion on this, but this is my thinking, anything less than a trip to the finals, then the move is a failure. I view it as a failure. I know that's a harsh way to judge, but that's what I'm. And I know the argument can be made. Well, Joel Embiid's never played in a conference finals, Mo. So if he gets there, the problem with that thinking is Joel Embiid is 29. He's getting ready to be 30. But if you look at his body versus his age, his body's probably already like 35. Do you understand? Like
Yeah.
Joel Embiid's not going to play like Steph and KD and LeBron like that. If he's playing in the NBA, Brett, in year 13, 14, and 15, it ain't going to be pretty. And he's not going to be Joel Embiid MVP. He's going to be more like, and even though they're vastly different players, he's a much better player. He's going to look a lot more like Andrew Bynum did when he was on the Sixers, and he was just done because his body is not going to hold up to where he's going to be a great player in year 12, 13, and 14. It's not going to happen. I would argue, if I'm a Sixer fan and they don't want to hear this, they're going to say, Mo, this is an MVP. He's the most, you could argue he's one of the most talented centers, if not the most talented offensive center ever. I understand all that. What I'm trying to say, Sixers fans, is he's getting older. And I think the window where he can be your best player and he can lend you to a title, I think that's closing. If you bring in a 34-year-old Paul George and you guys go, we made it to the conference finals, so you know what that means, guys. We're going to come back next year when Embiid's 30, 31 and Paul George is 35, and we're going to be that much better. That's not how that works. And I know they're going to say, well, Paul George played 74 games, Mo, this past season. He did. But how many games did he play the previous 4 seasons? 50, 48, 47. That 74 games was amazing, but it's an anomaly. It is. I'm of the thinking, yes, you commit to what you put together, Sixers, and then you try to win the title. But if you come up short, the smart move in the offseason is to trade Joel Embiid while he's fully healthy, if he's fully healthy, because he could very well get banged up again and be hurt in the playoffs, and get the value that you could get for him. If you could get 4 number ones for Rudy, you can get 5 for Embiid. You might get 6. You might get 6 and a player. I'm just saying that why couldn't you put guys around Maxey and try to build around Maxey? And I you can hold on to Paul George, but look, Paul George at 35, 36, I don't think that's going to be pretty either. Y'all just going to have to eat that money. Everybody's looking at the Sixers going, they're built to go on a 3-year run with the addition of Paul George. The contracts say so. I'm going to argue that the talent around the Sixers in the East, with the Knicks, with the Bucks, with the Celtics, who, by the way, their core guys, they're younger than Joel Embiid. That's not good. And I'm talking about Tatum and Brown. I think that is the challenge if you're a Sixer fan. I don't see where, if you don't make a run this year, you're not going to gain traction the following year. That's not going to happen. It's not. That's my opinion. I want to hear your opinion.
And the thing with Paul George playing 74 games as well is, how did that Clippers team look when you got to the postseason? Paul George looked winded. He looked gassed. James Harden looked gassed. So, honestly, if I'm the 76ers, I don't want Paul George to play 74 games because he just looked like he had nothing left in the tank when it came to the playoffs. Now, granted, he hit some amazing shots. He still did some incredible things. That's just a testament to who Paul George is as a player. The gas version of Paul George is still an incredible player. But, yeah, I think there's like a 2-year window with this team. And if they don't win in the next 2 years with this trio, yeah, if Embiid's still healthy and playing at an MVP level, I would absolutely consider moving him for an MVP haul.
In a heartbeat. And remember this, I get it because people want to go like, well, what if we win the title next year? If you win the title next year, Sixer fans, and after you win that title, the Embiid, Paul George, Maxey trio give you nothing else but that one title, the Paul George move will still be money well spent. If it brings you a title, it's money well spent. Period. That's the whole point you bringing him there. But if you, at the same token, if you bring Paul George there and y'all don't win Nathan, you just wasted a bunch of money. And look, Sixers fans know this. It's not the first time you guys have wasted money. You gave Tobias Harris money that you should have gave to Jimmy Butler, and I like Tobias Harris, but only the Sixers would pay the guy that's a fourth option damn near $200 million. Only the Sixers.
No, that's fair. So I guess my question for this exercise is, who would be the point guard for the Suns? Is it Devin Booker or Bradley Beal, or is it? Because I doubt they're going to move Beal to the bench, so it's going to be one of those two. We'll have to consider a point guard for this one, even though I agree with you, and none of them are a point guard.
Let me ask you: am I wrong? Didn't Phoenix pick up Tyus Jones from the Wizards? Did they get him?
They did pick up. They did pick up Tyus Jones. I
like Tyus Jones.
I'm just unsure if they'll start him.
Well, I can't make them be smart, but yeah, I like Tyus Jones.
I can make him
be smart. He's a natural point guard.
I think they should start him, but I don't think they will. I think they'll try this Devin Booker and Bradley Beal experiment. And I think give it halfway through the season before they finally decide to start Tyus Jones.
I agree. That's the part. You can't tell for coaching and what their mindset is, because they might feel like they have to have all those guys on the floor. Honestly, I think the best value for Bradley Beal for Phoenix is if he didn't start, but he came off the bench. If he played separate of the starting unit, where he could be more of a number one on that second team and then be part of the closing lineup, I think he would have more value that way. Look, Tyus Jones, I can see him easily giving you 15 points a game, 7 assists, shoot a high percentage, just be rock solid. What's wrong with that?
Right, and even with Tyus, I don't even need him to score. If he just gets KD, Beal, and Booker and them the ball in the right places and just puts them in better spots than they were in last year, that would be terrific.
I agree.
But yeah, so I'm just going off what ESPN had. They had Devin Booker, the point guard, because that's what the Suns did all last year.
They did, but yeah, I saw Book play point. And I'm not arguing play because he can be a playmaker. But I think the best version of Devin Booker, he's playing the two.
No, me too. So that's fair, and I 100% agree. So for the 8th best point guard in the league, what are we thinking? Like I said, we got Trey, Dame, Tyrese Maxey.
I'm going with Maxey. You have to have Damian Lillard in the top 10. The funny thing is, as we're having this conversation, I just realized people might kill us. Like, do you two guys have Damian Lillard at the back end of the top 10? that the words coming out of my mouth, it sounds kind of crazy. That's tough. That's and we put this together, and I don't think we got the top 5 wrong. I don't think we got the 5 wrong. But Dame being on the back end, and I get it. You're right about Trae Young. If you play a specific way, he's an incredible offensive talent. But I don't think playing that way, playing to his strength, necessarily builds or gives you wins. He's going to put up numbers, but I don't know if you're going to win basketball games. I always told people that year that they beat the Sixers and they had that run, that was a great run, but that wasn't the start of Atlanta being like a dominant team. It was a one-off. It was a fluke. It was just a great run.
Yeah, obviously I love Dame. It's just so tough because it was like a tale of two halves for him last year, with how rough he started out And then he started to hit his stride, but then he got hurt. So honestly, like, I think the 8 spot, because this is normally the spot where I might, before the Olympics, I may have said Jamal Murray. But after watching him, I'm not so confident in Jamal Murray anymore. I think Maxey or Dame is the right one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Dame out of respect. Then I'll put Maxey after him. I don't think Jamal Murray's in the top 10 because he was so bad in the postseason, and he's been even worse in the Olympics.
No, absolutely. So yeah, I can accept that. I'm cool with that. So we have Dame at 8, Tyrese Maxey at 9. That means number 10 is a toss-up between, like I said, Trae Young for this experiment, obviously Devin Booker, and of course, I would probably go Devin Booker because it's
go Book, right.
And then probably this is where it gets tough because Trae Young's going to put up amazing numbers, but obviously with the least success. But Jamal Murray, he's been struggling, and Trae Young also doesn't get to play off Jokic, which is a massive benefit for Jamal Murray.
That's funny you said that. Let me ask you a question. If you switch them, do you think that Trae Young could – you expect that Joker would make life easier for him, but would Trae allow that to happen? Like, you know what I mean? Because so much of what he does is off the dribble that would he appreciate the luxury of being able to just catch and shoot?
I want to say he would if he played with somebody with the talent level of Jokic, but it's such a mystery if he actually would or not. So overall, apparently Peanut agrees. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he would. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. That's tough, fair. But yeah, I guess another name we can throw into consideration, and this guy's not going to put up the stats the other guys are, but we know about the impact. Jrue Holiday.
I'm a big Jrue Holiday fan. Yeah, he's not going to be the numbers guy, but all he does is find ways to help his team win. I'm going to have Jrue in my top 15 because I think he's deserving of it. And he's still, he's an elite defender. And I know you can look at the numbers and go, well, he only averaged like 12 last year for the Celtics. Not because he had a down shooting year. He had a great shooting year. But on that particular roster, Drew's not. He's not the third option. He's not the fourth option. He's the fifth option.
No, that's fair. And of course, so I think this is the toss-up. I think this is the one that stumps, at least me. This is the one that's stumping me. Is it Trae Young or Jamal Murray? This is the one that's stumping me to oblivion right now because
that's a tough one.
I know they're portrayed very differently in the media. I know their seasons are going to go vastly different in terms of team success. Whew.
You know what? I'm going to give Trae Young the edge. I'm going to give Trae to Young because I think that Trae Young gets gashed pretty bad. I've criticized him, but not on his ability, not on his talent. I'm just trying to, I guess as a fan, I'm looking at him because there are times when he will just come down and just chuck a shot up, and it's just a bad shot. And I get it. No one's going to say anything because it's Trae Young. I want to believe because he had that great run that one season that he's capable of consistently being a winning player. I guess the question is with Trae is, if he went somewhere, Brett, and he wasn't the number one option, he was the number 2, or what if he was the number 3 option? Could he enjoy that? Because he would obviously experience great team success, but would he enjoy it as much if he didn't make an all-star team? Or do you know what I'm saying? Would he rather be all-star / all NBA, or would he rather have a shot at winning a title but being in a lesser role?
Yeah, and honestly, I think at this point he'd probably just rather go for the title. And the reason I would say that is like in the position he's in now, he's putting up numbers, but he's not getting the respect he deserves anyway. All Star, All NBA. So I think that if he went to a better team and still produced and put up the numbers, he might get that nod. And it's just unfortunate at times on how it just shows you how different situations can lead to you being viewed in multiple different ways. But I think that if Trae Young went to a better situation, that he would not only be a better player, but people would look at him in a different light.
I agree.
So, all right. So we'll do a fun little recap here. At 1, Luka Doncic. We had Luka 1, Shea 2, Steph 3, Ja Morant 4, Jalen Brunson 5, Tyrese Halliburton at 6, De'Aaron Fox at 7. We had Damian Lillard 8, Tyrese Maxey at 9, Devin Booker 10, and at 11 we had Trae Young, and 12 Jamal Murray.
Not a bad 12, and I get it. If you're Jamal Murray, you don't think it's that good at 12, but I'm a Jamal Murray fan. I hope he turns it around. What can I say?
I'll say I'm thinking about making this a list to post on the N1 Facebook page. Dude, we're gonna get slandered so bad for it. It's gonna be hilarious.
You know what? You should put it on there, and if we get hammered, we get hammered. It's fine. Look,
right?
It's basketball. And I get it. There's no shortage of Jamal Murray or Trae Young fans. Even if we go further up, somebody's going to go, I can't believe you two guys have Ja Morant at 4. How is he not number 1? Like, everybody's not going to be happy. And I get it. And it's really hard because these are some really talented guys. These are some terrific players. But look, I thought we made some really good points, and there's like even the argument we had. We didn't even have an argument. What we said about Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox. I thought when you look at their skill sets, I thought we were spot on with them. It's close, but I think Halliburton is a natural point guard. And look, if we went down that list all over again and just handpicked and said, well, who's a natural point guard and who's more of a scoring point guard? There's not 5 natural point guards on the list. They're not. There's not 5 of them. Most of those guys are shoot first point guards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just shows the evolution of the point guard position, honestly. And the rest of the list would be, I'm sure, like the next 2. If I had to look at this, 13, I think that's the perfect spot for Jrue Holiday. At I think 14 and 15, that is interesting too, because the 2 names that when I look at this list and I see for this 14-15 spot, James Harden and Darius Garland. And I know this is probably where we get slammed the most, James Harden being this low, but he's not the James Harden of yesteryear. I still think he's a great talent, but I also think that the league has just passed by James Harden at this point. Still a great talent, but there's just multiple better options than him.
And let's not forget, I think the same way we pointed out that Steph was 35. What is James Harden, 34? Getting ready to be 35 himself. So, look, you get older, and it's not a slap in the face. We're still talking about a guy, Brett, that gives you 17 points and like 9 assists. That's not awful. That's not awful. That's a really good basketball player. He's just not an elite player anymore.
I guess my question is, who would you have? Because I'm very confident in those 2 being the next 2. I still think that DeJounte Murray's behind those 2. Like, he's a third name we can throw in, but I still think those 2 are better players than DeJounte Murray.
I think both of them are better offensive players than DeJounte Murray.
So I guess my question is, for going into next year, do you think Garland or Harden will be better? I think it'll be Darius Garland.
We disagree on this one. I think it'll be James Harden. I think James Harden is going to be emboldened this year because Paul George is gone. It'll be him and Kawhi. And if Kawhi isn't ready for the start of the season, you might see something that looks a lot like Houston James Harden, at least for the first 20, 25 games. I think James Harden is going to jack up 22 shots a game, average 9 or 10 assists a game. Like, I don't think he can ever be prime James again, but could he put up big numbers? Absolutely.
I think that I just have questions about when it comes to James Harden is does he still have like the burst to get by people? Like, does he still have that in him? I didn't see him go, didn't see him really take it to the whole lot last year. If he's over relying on his step back and his jumper, I'm not sure exactly how far that'll carry him. I'm okay with him being over Darius Garland. I don't have any qualms about that. But yeah, that's kind of why I almost went with Garland. I'm like, I think Garland will just have an easier time just being a more versatile scorer and just getting in, breaking down the defense to kind of add to that level of shot creation that he has.
Yeah. Look, you make a great point. James Harden, I think he can still get to the basket, but he doesn't have the same burst. He doesn't. You can tell, like, it's not because he's being called differently. It's literally because physically he can't rock you to sleep, then just suddenly burst by you. Now he's relying more on change of pace and getting his body into yours and then attacking. So he's different. He's had to change his game to go with where he is physically at this stage of his career. And I get that. So look, I think Darius Garland is obviously the quicker guy. He can break defenses down more consistently. I still think James Harden is still just a natural, more clever scorer.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. And then we have 16, 17, 18. There's names I would like to throw out there is I do think that DeJounte Murray is still like right behind those guys.
Okay. I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
And the other two names that I think could give him a run for his money, though, Jalen Suggs, Cade Cunningham, LaMelo Ball.
Those are really three good names. And I would argue that we should all NBA fans look at what LaMelo Ball and Cade Cunningham can do as individual talents. I do think Detroit's going to be much improved. Cade Cunningham is going to elevate himself. Like, I know we have him way down there now. I reserve the right that once the regular season starts and we're, let's say, 25, 30 games into the season, to come back and update this list.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it wouldn't shock me if Cade Cunningham and LaMelo Ball, provided they're both healthy, are going to leap a few of these guys that are on the list that we have right now because they're incredibly talented. Obviously, they're on teams that aren't projected to have huge years. But I think, again, like you pointed out, if Detroit wins between 30 and 35 games, I think that's a great leap forward for them. I do. I really do. And if they win more than that, that guy might be talking about coach of the year. What if Detroit goes 41-41? That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Probably MVP.
He's right there. Right. I'm just saying. I think Cade Cunningham has that kind of ability. I also say the same about LaMelo Ball. The only thing I question about LaMelo Ball is not the talent, not the ability. Does he have the focus to lock in? Because sometimes he seems a little too carefree.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm very high on LaMelo Ball. If people want to know how high I am on the talent of LaMelo Ball, I think he's just as good, if not better, talent-wise than Tyrese Halliburton. I think he's right up there with Halliburton. He's just, the issue is he can't stay healthy, and he's a little more reckless than Halliburton.
That's high praise. I
think talent-wise, he's right there. The issue is he can't stay healthy. That's the only reason for me why he's down there. If we get a full 82-game healthy out of LaMelo Ball, he will be in the conversation for a top 10 point guard in this league. I have no doubt about that. I'm very high on the talent of LaMelo Ball, but I just need to see it actualized now.
And I think it's interesting that both LaMelo Ball and Maxey are two of the longer point guards. Maxey's like 6'7". I think LaMelo Ball's a full 6'7", 6'8". Yeah, I don't deny his talent. I would argue that LaMelo Ball might be more talented than Maxey. He might have a higher ceiling. I'm just wondering if he can be as consistent as Maxey is. That or not Maxey as Halliburton is. That would be interesting.
Absolutely. I think if I had to rate him right now, I'm still putting DeJounte at 16.
Okay.
I'm gonna go proven here. Go Jalen Suggs at 17. I think he's got the lowest offensive floor out of these guys, but I think he's still going to be making all defensive teams for multiple years to come.
Yeah, agreed.
I'd put Cade Cunningham over LaMelo Ball right now because he's proven more at this point. However, mark my words, if both of those guys, I think both of those guys are going to have arguments to crack the top 10 once the season gets rolling and play starts. I'm very high on both of them.
I don't disagree with that. If they can both stay healthy, I think they're going to leapfrog a lot of the guys that we have ahead of them because one, each of them are going to be able to be spearhead their offenses. So they're going to be prominent offensively. So just on the numbers alone, if they're healthy, they're going to both, you have to admit, Brett, they're both going to put up insane numbers.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So, and of course, when we get into the back nine here, 20 through 30, this is where we start talking about a bunch of just vets and just potential maybe. For 20, I got Mike Conley. I'm thinking Mike Conley here.
You went Mike Conley. I was gonna go either Mike Conley or Chris Paul, but I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Mike Conley.
Yeah, and overall, I think Mike Conley is still a solid player, except obviously he's well past his prime, but he still contributes to winning in every way that you'd want out of a point guard. So,
thanks. Yeah,
and I think Chris Paul at 21 is perfect too. Another just aging veteran. However, when it comes to Chris Paul, I think he's going to have a career year as long as he can make passes to Wemby. He'll be perfectly fine. He's not going to score a lot, but I also think that he's not going to score, but his assists are going to go crazy.
Watch Chris Paul set Wemby up to where Wemby's in the conversation for MVP. Even though the Spurs are probably going to win, I think I wouldn't be shocked if the Spurs were a 30, maybe 35 win team because people underestimate what Wemby is going to be in year 2. They underestimate some of the young talent who's also around him. They do have talent in San Antonio, and I think they underestimate the leadership that Chris Paul is going to have in that locker room and on the floor because he's going to get those guys in their proper spots.
Yeah, absolutely. 22, give me D'Lo?
D'Lo, yeah, I mean, like you said, we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Like this is where I think you run into a big would you rather have D'Lo, Terry Rozier, Josh Giddey, Fred VanVleet?
Fred VanVleet is he's very interesting. He's a hard one to calibrate. I just think he's a winner. He doesn't always put up the best numbers, but I think he's a winner. I would take Fred VanVleet over D'Lo, even though I think D'Lo's a better shooter.
I got you. That's fair. And then, after that, like I said, this is where it gets tough. 23, I'd probably Terry Rozier. I think he's going to have a great year for the Heat. I think they needed extra scoring. I think he can provide that. He's not going to provide much for on the defensive end, but if there's anything to be brought out, it's going to be Spo that brings it out.
And with Rozier, it's not about talent. It's kind of like about the other two guys. It's about him just being able to stay healthy. When he's healthy, he's productive.
Right. After him at 24, I guess do you want to go with the reliability of VanVleet or just the potential of Josh Giddey? Because I think those two are probably the next two, but I guess it depends.
I'm going to go with VanVleet, even though I like Giddey. I think the funny thing about Giddey is he thinks pass first to a fault. I think he's got to make himself a little bit of a better scorer. It would make him a better facilitator. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
people come down, and when he attacks the basket, everybody knows when he attacks the basket, he's looking to pass. I think he's got to be just a little bit more selfish to make defenses honest with how they play him, and he'll be an even better facilitator.
Or I forgot about Emmanuel Quickly. I think he's going to have a fine year.
I know Toronto's hoping all that money they gave him.
No, that's fair. That is fair. But I honestly, Emmanuel Quickly, it's a dice roll. I'm willing to keep Van Fleet over him. So all right, and yeah, this is where we get into the real nitty gritty. I still believe in Scoot Henderson. Probably have him at 27. He's got things to work on, but his second year loaded with potential. I'll take that potential in this spot.
I think Scoot's going to be better. I think he's going to be one of those guys that every year you see a marked improvement in what he does. So I'm fine with him being there. And I know somewhere if somebody's a Scoot Henderson fan, they're going to go, "How do you have Scoot at 27?" We're just talking about where he's at right now. I don't know that Scoot won't turn around and average 18 points a game and 9 assists and shoot a high percentage. I as a fan, I hope he does, but we're going off of what we have, what he's done.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that I'll say like after that, Dennis Schroeder maybe? Dennis Schroeder or Malcolm Brogdon.
You are getting down to the nitty gritty. Now we're going with grizzled veterans. Look, the funny thing is, I would say this: if Schroeder played in the regular season the way he's played in the Olympics, he would have had a big contract again.
Yeah, no, I'd say I'd probably go Schroeder, Brogdon, with the worst point guard in the NBA, young guy with potential, Keontae George.
And like you said, to your point, tons of potential. You know what? Who wasn't on this list that I didn't see? I just realized that, unless he's on here and I missed him. And maybe because Steph is on here, but the young point guard for Golden State, what's his name? Yeah.
I'll say I think they're probably going to count him as a shooting guard.
Are they really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe this is actually a lot of fun. It made us talk about a lot of teams that we don't get to talk about a lot. So yeah, if we do this again for all the positions, when we hit shooting guards, we'd hit pods.
I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of his.
So, well, that we have it. I tried to do my best to keep up and track everybody for the end. Over on the side here, I'll make a post about it.
Right.
And we got one more question before we get on out of here, Mo. Who has improved their stock the most in the Olympics?
Is that for Team USA, right?
I think it just goes for everybody.
You mean the athletes in general, or just Team USA?
I think just in general, all the NBA players that are.
I would say I think Anthony Edwards did. I think Booker's been really good. I can't say KD and LeBron has added anything. They've just been both transcendent players, Brett, right? They've been what they are, right? You know what I mean? Like,
part of me almost wants to give the fool's gold answer and say Dennis Schroeder, but that man plays well in the Olympics every year, and we know what he is in the regular season. I will still die on the hill that the Orlando Magic should trade for him and try to run him with the bench unit with the Wagners because they have great chemistry. That is a hill I will die on.
On a side note, you know who else always plays well in international play? Patty Mills. Patty Mills he's a role player in the NBA, but in international play, Patty Mills is throwing up 20 points a game. Like, suddenly he's looking quicker than he's ever looked. Like, you look at Patty, you're like, I didn't know Patty Mills had that kind of bag. Like, Patty Mills lights it up in international play. I think Dennis Schroeder did raise his stock. He played really well. And the thing about him is you almost forget he's always been really good. And he's one of those guys, Brett, no matter how long he's been in the league, he still has that incredible burst.
I do have a different answer for this. I had to quickly look up the name because I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. I did watch him play. Not necessarily an NBA player, Kaman Maluk, he played on South Sudan and he's committed to Duke. That man played insanely well in the Olympics, and I wouldn't doubt that teams are going to look at this tape plus whatever he does in college, and I wouldn't be shocked if in next year's draft that he gets a little boost from what he did in the Olympics this year.
I did not know he was going to Duke. That's awesome. And I'm wondering if somehow that's part of the Luol Deng connection, right? That's awesome. Look, talented young man. My guess is if he continues to take the leap forward in his development, he's probably going to be a one and done guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with the extra, like I said, experience from the Olympics, I'm sure that we'll see him sooner rather than later.
Agreed.
And well, that's all I got for you guys today. I'll say we went a little longer than normal. That's okay. I'm glad we can entertain everybody for the last hour, almost 2 hours. Longest and one show ever. It was a lot of fun, though. I really enjoyed it. Mo, do you have anything to say before we get on up out of here?
We just did the longest and one show ever. See, Wire to Wire just did 200, and one just crossed the 147-minute mark. Basically, we're killing it. No, look, I appreciate everybody for tuning in, listening to Brett and I chop up hoops. We appreciate you guys. I'm going to always say what I feel. Make sure you guys check out all the great content we have at the Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out Mo tomorrow morning show, 8 a.m. Central. Be there or be squared, guys. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Thank you, everybody who tuned in on TikTok. We appreciate all of you, and we hope you guys have yourselves a great rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page, and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.